Week 3 of the NFL has been and gone, and it is time to panic. Some teams are 0-3 and now statistically have less than a 1% chance to make the playoffs, so their seasons are all but over. Some defenses are playing poorly, some offenses look very underwhelming, some individual players do not look as good as they should be or as fans hoped they would be. So today, me and my co-host Nick Corbs are going over 5 things that we are most concerned about. To do this, we're going to be using the panic meter pattern pending. These are 5 levels of panic ranging from mildly concerning to outright panic. We have at the first rung of the meter warning signs. These are things that are cropping up but nothing major. Next stage up, we have cause for concern. These are noticeable problems but nothing too bad. 3, we have starting to worry. These are issues that are clearly there and could cause problems if they're not fixed sooner rather than later. The next rung up at 4, we have serious trouble. These are clear problems which are hurting teams right now. And last but not least, we have panic stations. This is full-blown crisis mode. The season could already be over. Nick, are you ready to talk about some teams or some players or some coaches maybe who haven't been looking so great?
I'm looking forward to getting into it, Dom. New pattern pending video. Let's get into it.
And before we do, make sure you like and comment to push it out to other NFL fans, and make sure you subscribe to not miss out on a video. And we're going to start with the warning signs. And I'm going to kick us off here, Nu. And I think there are warning signs about Ashton Jeanty. Not all rookies hit the ground running, right? Brett Coleman had a tweet where he said that Derrick Henry didn't have 100 rush yards until week 6 of his second season. Jahmyr Gibbs didn't have 100 rush yards until week 6 of his career. I think really the reason why Ashton Jeanty is on here and there are warning signs isn't because of Ashton Jeanty at all, really. For me, it really boils down to the Raiders' offensive line. That's really the trouble behind the Ashton Jeanty poor performances and the lack of stats and the lackluster start to what we thought on this channel was going to be an Offensive Rookie of the Year campaign. As of week 2, so not including the week that's just gone, there are 54 running backs with 10 or more carries so far after week 2. Ashton Jeanty ranked 54th, so for the maths whizzes among you, last, in yards before contact per attempt at minus 0.1 yards. That means he is frequently getting contacted behind the line of scrimmage. That's not on the running back, that is on the bad offensive line. And I believe in Jeanty's talent, I'm sure you do as well, Nu. I just don't believe in the Raiders' offensive line, specifically their run blocking. You could have prime Barry Sanders back there and it's still going to look ugly. So while there are warning signs about Jeanty, I think that really the blame should be focused on the Raiders' offensive line.
The Raiders have committed rebuilding sacrilege by drafting a running back that early. It's rule number 1. It happened with the Giants a couple of years back with Saquon. It doesn't matter the talent at the position. If you do not have the infrastructure in place for a running back like that to succeed, it's always trouble. I don't think this reflects bad on Ashton Jeanty at all, Dom. I think that's right in saying. But that Raiders offensive line, especially that interior offensive line, looks absolutely terrible.
It doesn't really make sense to me because they have Jackson Powers-Johnson, who's now moved from guard back to center, I believe, if I'm right in saying that. Either way, I think he is a good player coming out. And I quite like their offensive line player for player. They had a really bad run game last year, and I maybe naively put that down to, well, it was just Zamir White, and I can't even remember the other running backs, but there were no names that were of doing them a discredit, but they weren't worth mentioning, right? So I thought that Ashton Jeanty would fix the problem, but it always is. It does come down to, this is kind of when I was a PFF radical back in my heyday, it does come down to the fact that run game is very much set, or the floor, let's say, of the run game is set by the offensive line and the ceiling is then set by the running back. I think the ceiling is very high still, but the floor is so low, and that's what's really going wrong in Las Vegas.
I'm really worried about Ashton Jeanty, Dom, but I just want to also talk about another rookie for me that I think there's some warning signs with, which is Travis Hunter. So the big cornerback wide receiver drafted 2nd overall, 2 first-round picks to go and trade up for him. I'm worried about him because this was my pre-draft concern. He's being used 50-50, and by doing both, he's doing neither. Through 3 games, he's got 76 yards on offense, 0 touchdowns. And on defense, he's had 6 targets, 5 of which have been caught. He's not contributing massively on offense or defense. I think Jacksonville defense looks very good, and I think he should be used, therefore, more heavily as a wide receiver, especially with Brian Thomas Jr.'s struggles. But for some reason, he's not there on the big plays. And if you're going to spend that much draft capital on someone, you got to utilize him most effectively. And right now, despite his snap count being very high, I don't think he's being utilized correctly at all.
The Travis Hunter discussion is a very interesting one, I think, because I'm personally happy to give Hunter more grace. Cornerback is notoriously a very difficult position to transition from college to the NFL. And when you look at, for me, who his offensive passing game coach is in Shane Waldron, I think that is the real issue there. Travis Hunter himself had 69% of his snaps on defense last week against the Texans, which meant that he isn't able to play more wide receiver. And even though I agree with you, that's kind of where you'd need him more. But he did have a nice 21-yard gain against the Texans. You saw the agility, you saw that potential. I think that is absolutely still there. I think, as I said, the real issue for me is Shane Waldron. Why I'm concerned about Hunter and Brian Thomas Jr. is really because of him. He made people think that Jackson Smith-Njigba, who is on, near on 400 yards in 3 games, and Rome Odunze, who has had 3 touchdowns in 1 game when he had 4 last year under Shane Waldron, were busts or bad players. Like, that's quite impressive to make 2 clearly very competent, if not very good receivers, look as bad as they did. That's because of him. And now he's ruining Brian Thomas Jr., who looks unrecognizable, and Travis Hunter, who does not yet, I agree with you, has not yet kind of burst onto the scene, had his rookie moment. For those of you that play fantasy, he's not been kind of worth wherever you've taken him. I think the talent is absolutely still there. I trust that talent will eventually rise to the surface. But I am concerned a little bit, as are you clearly, that for me, Travis Hunter's talent is not being realized because of one certain man called Shane Waldron.
Yeah, and it's still early on, Dom. That's why this is not a full-on panic stations. This is not a level 5, a code black. It's only 3 games in, and I do think he'll be able to carve out his role and carve out his niche and get more consistent at that. But at the moment, you're right, Shane Waldron and the Jags front office just need to work out how to best utilize this one-of-one player.
He is a one-of-one player, and I'm with you. I trust the talent of both Jeanty and Hunter here. That's why it's just, things are cropping up that we're not quite liking the look of. Not that it's going to be the end of the world, end of their season, end of their career, far, far, far from it. But it isn't the start that we'd hoped for, I think is the fair summary there. Now moving on to cause for concern. And this is a player now who I definitely do have concern for, who was a rookie last year now in his sophomore season. And that is Marvin Harrison Jr. He had 2 bad, and I mean bad, drops in this game. One was wide open. There was not a defensive back within 10 yards of him. And had he caught it, it could have maybe been a 70-yard touchdown. And the other one was dropped in the end zone. That would have been a touchdown. Now, he kind of got bailed out of that one because it was a flag against the defense for Arizona. So it didn't really kind of take a touchdown off the board, quote unquote. But nevertheless, there's 2 bad drops there. And I think we were both already worried about him last year, right? Like, he didn't hit the ground running. He had a fine rookie season relative to expectations, like 800-odd yards. He had that massive game very early on, but then didn't really do much after that. It was questions of, him and Kyler Murray on the same page, and he's put on 20 pounds of muscle this offseason, and him and Kyler have been in the lab. Marvin Harrison Jr. does not look like the player he looked like in college. And my concern was that I was too high on him and too low on Malik Neighbors, because Neighbors is that true, quote-unquote, modern receiver. Like, you can line up Neighbors in the slot, you can line him up in the backfield, you can line him up out wide, you can give him jet sweeps, he can, catch those Russell Wilson moon balls 50, 60, 70 yards down the field. Whereas Marvin Harrison Jr. is a bit of a receiver from a bygone era. He is someone you line up out wide, who is a contested target guy. He's not, like, dynamic with the ball in his hands, but, you throw it up to him, he comes down with it. At the moment, in 2 weeks, he's had 3 drops. So in 3 weeks, he's had 3 drops. He had a 42% contested catch rate in 2024. That's not the receiver you drafted him for. And throughout 2 weeks of this season, I keep jumping around my stats here a little bit, but throughout 2 weeks, he'd only forced 1 missed tackle. It's really ugly, I think.
It's weird to see them because he was such a good college prospect. When you think he was playing with JSN, with Egbuka, and I think if we got my dates right, even as early as maybe Olave and Wilson, because I think he started as a true freshman. And he was the best player on the pitch. He was the best wide receiver in that receiver room as a true freshman. People were saying he's going to go lock top 3, went before Neighbors and Adunze and loads of other talented receivers. And then he's just been so underwhelming. And I think it must just be a confidence issue. But I agree with you, Dom. I do think the warning signs are there. This is not a few bad games. He's really stringing together lackluster performances. And I think he needs to turn it around sooner rather than later because he could be a bust at this point.
When you're looking at the tape, right, he is jumping unnecessarily when he's wide open. He is catching with his body, which is unnecessary. It's like he's forgotten how to play the wide receiver position. And I think that Kyler Murray now doesn't really trust him. There was a play at the end, towards the end of that game against San Francisco. When the Cardinals were playing San Francisco. And it was a choice on like a kind of two crossing routes between Trey Benson and Marvin Harrison Jr. And if that is Malik Neighbors, if that is Jamar Chase, if that is Justin Jefferson, if that is CeeDee Lamb, Puka Nacua, the quarterback is going to that receiver 10 times out of 10. But Kyler went to Trey Benson, who was a bit more open and eventually dropped it for a touchdown. But the fact that he didn't even trust Marvin Harrison Jr. there to pick up extra yards, to catch the ball, to make a play, is, I think, pretty concerning. The chemistry isn't there, but I think that it's not fair to pin this on Kyler Murray or just Kyler Murray anymore. I think I do have, again, concerns about Marvin Harrison Jr. Could he turn it around? Absolutely. Has he had a bad start to his career? No, I wouldn't say so. 800 yards as a rookie isn't bad. But again, it's relative to expectations, and we had such high expectations of Marvin Harrison Jr. Brian Thomas Jr. had a massive season last year. Malik Neighbors had a great season. Rome Odunze is doing things for Chicago. Marvin Harrison Jr. is getting left behind. So for me, I think this definitely falls into the starting to worry category because there's enough now evidence there where I think it warrants that.
So, Don, my starting to worry category, so cause of concern, is Aaron Glenn and the New York Jets. So the New York Jets have started 0-3. But the biggest issue for me, Dom, is they've got such a wealth of defensive talent. Will McDonald, Sauce Gardner, Quinnen Williams, and they're 29th overall in total defense. With a defensive-minded head coach, I know they've had three rough games to start the season, but you're really expecting a jump when you hire a defensive-minded head coach with that talent, and it doesn't seem to be clicking altogether. The reason why it's not way down on the list for me is I do like Aaron Glenn. I do think the New York Jets are playing with a bit of edge. That meme of Aaron Glenn dancing down the sideline after the block kick. And they've been in close games. That Steelers game was a great game. This away at the Bucs was a great game. But I think next week they've got the Dolphins, and that's going to be a real test. They should walk the Dolphins, get that confidence win, because they're in a bit of a death row of a division and a death row of the schedule, looking at their games coming up. So this is an important game to win, because otherwise I can see the season spiraling quickly, especially if Tyrod Taylor's at the helm for a long time.
I'm going to push back at the Jets being on here, I think, because I find that they are a plucky team under Aaron Glenn. And actually, in many ways, despite their record, especially looking at their week one performance against the Steelers, I thought they looked a hell of a lot better than I thought they were going to. My expectations for them this year, and I think it's fair to say that most people's expectations of the Jets this year was, can you do all right with Justin Fields as your bridge quarterback? Can you steal a few games that you probably shouldn't? And really, your actual time to build and to start being competitive is 2026, 2027. I like the offensive line. You are right. There's some nice defensive pieces. Quinnen Williams, Sauce Gardner, and people like Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald, definitely. You've still got Breece Hall on the offense. You've got Garrett Wilson. I think they just are on schedule. I think week one might have thrown the Jets off into people's kind of like, oh, well, they're actually going to be a dark horse playoff competitive team. And I think that with Justin Fields, maybe, but Justin Fields in week one had the best game of his career. I think it's probably safe to say in the NFL. And then week two followed it up with maybe the worst performance of his career. So that is the true Justin Fields experience. And I think that now we have a larger sample size on the Jets. We know that they're the team that things aren't going to bounce their way, like having the block field goal return for the touchdown to lose this game. I think that's kind of fair within their range of expectations. I'm not concerned about the Jets because I didn't really have that much expectations for them.
That is fair to say, but I think the New York Jets have always been just a quarterback away. Ever since the 1960s, they've always just been that one piece away from making it big. And I thought Aaron Glenn would have much more of an 8-8 style season with this team. Not the extreme highs, not the extreme lows. I thought they'd be a gritty team which played really good defense. And they're a gritty team, but that defense has not caught up with it. And it's a quarterback failure factory, the New York Jets. But I do think that a good quarterback could really change them next season. But I thought they'd be a bit more steady this season and not going for a top 5 pick. I thought they'd be in that 8 and 9 range rather.
Yeah, no, that's actually that's a fair point. I hear that, and I do like that rebuttal. You're right. They were going to be like a rock solid high floor team, and at the moment they're kind of like a very high variance and not
Yeah.
really delivering on the defense side of the ball. Okay, you might have cooked there. But moving on then to we're turning the heat up now. We're at the third rung in our panic meter, starting to worry now, and I am starting to worry about the Philadelphia Eagles passing attack. Yes, I can hear news thoughts, and I can hear people in the comments. Oh, they're 3-0. Jalen Hurts is brilliant. Yes, those are absolutely true. And I've been kind of banging the table about this for the entire 3 weeks that has happened in the season so far. And I know that this is going to come right because it just has to at some point. They were saved by Jordan Davis heroics. And at the moment, talking about the Jets, it feels like the Eagles in this game are playing massively high variance football. Like they had 2 blocked field goals. They returned 1 for the win at the end of the game. They are coaching offensively. Ken Patullo is coaching like he is scared. He's coaching like he thinks he is the offensive coordinator of the Cleveland Browns. Like he doesn't have Jalen Hurts at quarterback. Like he doesn't have AJ Brown and Devonta Smith at wide receiver. And it's really jarring. They had negative passing yards at halftime. The Rams defense held the Eagles to 6 consecutive 3-and-out offensive plays. 6 in a row. That is unfounded for what is clearly and very obviously, if you watch the rest of the game in the second half, a very, very strong football team. The very nature, I think, of this band on the panic meter is that I'm starting to worry that the passing attack will cost this team valuable wins, which might be the difference between them having the first seed and a bye, or say being the 4th seed and having to play an actually sneaky strong NFC wildcard team. I just think that when you compare how the first half went, when they were down 19 points in the third quarter, and then in the second half, Jalen Hurts just played an absolute fantastic performance. He had 221 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. He completed. We said last week that the Eagles had more tush pushes than they did completions of 10 or more yards. And they had like 7 tush pushes and 4 completions of 10 or more yards across 2 weeks. Jalen Hurts, in one half of football alone, completed 7 of his 9 passing attempts of 10 or more yards for 154 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's the kind of quarterback that Jalen Hurts is. He is a good quarterback. Is he elite? I personally don't think so. But he's a quarterback that you can put a lot of things on his plate. You can rely on him to make a play with his legs or with his arm. You've got AJ Brown. You've got Devonta Smith. To me, it seems like Ken Patullo is lost at the moment. He's got to kick it in gear. See if it changes at the moment. But the way I see it with Ken Patullo kind of calling plays is they won that game because of the talent, Jordan Davis and Harry Roseman. They won because of a great second half comeback, and they won because of a healthy dose of luck. Blocking field goals, whilst takes skill, does rely on quite a lot of luck. That is high variance football. If the Eagles have to rely on that every time they play a good team, they're not going to come away with the wins they need to. So yes, the record is going to paper over the cracks. And yes, it sounds like I'm nitpicking the Eagles. They are such a strong team when they want to be. They're just not always looking like it.
So, Dom, this is going to sound completely unrelated, but have you heard on TikTok that people think the Rapture is coming next week?
Yeah, on the 23rd. Oh, tomorrow.
On the 23rd. So, apparently, this is obviously not that verifiable. More people betted on Jesus coming back to life next week than betted on Jalen Hurts over passing yards on like Polymarks. But I see what you're saying, Dom, but I think Jalen Hurts, at the end of the day, does have that him factor to him.
He does.
He was able to put the team on his back when he needed it most. And yes, they're playing high variance football. They look like a bad football team through 2.5, 3 quarters. But Jalen Hurts was able to pull out the bag when it mattered most. And you're right, there's such a wealth of offensive talent. They should be doing better. And the fact that they're not with a great offensive line, with Saquon Barkley, with Devonta Smith, with AJ Brown, is really surprising. But Dom, do you think they're going to be able to turn it around later on in the season? Or do you think the Eagles we have now is what the Eagles are going to be for the rest of the season?
Ken Patullo's got to look at that first half and second half performance and think, right, second half was a bit better than the first. What did I do in the second half that made it so good? Oh, yes, that's right. I was aggressive. I attacked downfield. I let AJ Brown be the wide receiver one he is and make plays. I let Jalen Hurts show his him factor. Because there was that footage of him when he was watching the blocked field goal return for a touchdown, which won them that game, the guy might as well have been looking out the door, out of the window on a tube in London. Like, and I'm to see that. You wouldn't have known from his face that they were about to win a game on one of the most crazy plays of the entire season, and that a 350-pound defensive lineman was running at 19 miles an hour. That guy's basically like a rhinoceros. Like, that's what you hear about, like, in like the savannah. Like, you can't outrun a rhino, and everyone's like, no, maybe you could. He was moving, man. He was absolutely moving, and he was like this, just stone-faced. I don't know if there's detachment there, if he expected them to win. I don't know, but that's kind of what you want your quarterback to be like. You want them to be that like cold-hearted assassin. And I would let Jalen Hurts spin it. I would let Devonta Smith be on the receiving end of it. Obviously, the run game and the defense, that's always fine. But man, just let the Eagles' passing attack be as good as we know the Eagles' passing attack can be.
So my cause for concern, I think there's a real panic here, is Michael Penix Jr. and the Falcons front office. The Falcons just got blown out by the Carolina Panthers, putting up a donut in one of the worst offensive performances I have seen in such a long time. In this season, for sure. Michael Penix Jr., through 3 games, has 1 passing touchdown and 2 interceptions. He's got as many passing touchdowns for his team as he does for the Carolina Panthers. That is a real issue. The offense on the whole, Drake London, Bijan Robinson, I'm just going to say Kyle Pitts because I think you always have to throw Kyle Pitts and then talk about the Falcons.
It makes it sound better.
It makes it sound better. Has completely stalled out. Do you think that the Falcons would undoubtedly be better with Kirk Cousins at the helm right now? Ooh. And the Falcons front office has put so much draft capital into both the two first-round edge rushers this year and Michael Penix Jr., both of which do not seem to be making a lot. Against the Vikings, I thought that was the team that we were going to see. Maybe the Vikings with JJ McCarthy were just the worst team, because that performance against the Panthers was absolutely diabolical. Bryce Young looked like an MVP candidate out there, and they put up a donut. If they don't make the playoffs this year, which I really don't think they will, that entire front office, head coach, GM, they're all getting the axe.
Penix is 0-4 when his opponents score more than 7 points. That is not
That's
good.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that is not good. You don't need to be a statistician to realise, that's not great. And as you say, there's so much offensive talent out there with Bijan Robinson and Drake London to get shut out, to not be competitive in close games. He's only 6 starts in. Again, I want to be fair to the rookies here. I think that it is still pretty early in Michael Penix's season. I think it is kind of early to judge him as an individual player. But I agree with you that really the situation that he finds himself in, despite having a wealth of offensive talent to throw to, I'm not sure about Zach Robinson as the offensive coordinator, and I'm really not sure about Raheem Morris as the head coach. He's now 30-49 as a head coach in the NFL. And coaching, especially for a young quarterback like Michael Penix, sure, someone like Rodgers or someone like Josh Allen now, Patrick Mahomes now, Lamar Jackson now, could overcome kind of poor, subpar coaching with their experience. Michael Penix is only 6 starts into his NFL career. He can't draw on other offensive coordinators that he's worked with in the NFL or other offensive-minded head coaches that he's worked with and learn from them and apply that wealth of knowledge. Instead, I think he's kind of working with subpar coaching. He's got a live arm. I think he's a very talented quarterback. He's got the potential. But yeah, it seems like with Penix, every single time we watch him play, there's like one step forward. Oh, there's an amazing throw. Look at that tight window throw. And it looks really great because he's a lefty. But then also, and then the next game is, oh, yeah, that's ugly. He looked like he's only started 6 games. He looked like he's not got that good coaching. He looked like he's a bit lost out there. And when you're putting Kirk Cousins back out there, the quarterback that you benched for that very player, is a very jarring metaphor, I think. That's why I'm surprised Kirk Cousins is still there. Like, you can't go... But basically, Anthony Richardsoning him at this point. Like, you can't go and get him out there, bench and put it back in. I know they're 34 points down. You would bench, Rodgers against the Seahawks last week. They took him out of the game. He's your starter. No point in him getting injured. But there is something a bit more sinister behind that when Kirk Cousins has been benched for Michael Penix only, in terms of weeks of football played, only like 8 weeks ago. So it's not good.
I know you say there's some sparks, but this season especially, I haven't really seen that. I think he got out-jeweled by Spencer Rattler in week 1. I think Spencer
Rattler's good, man.
Yeah, I think Spencer Rattler looked like the better quarterback in that game. They just beat JJ McCarthy, who's obviously just 2 starts into his career. We're not going to be too harsh on him. And then it's got blown out by Bryce Young, who people were calling a bust, and people being me and you.
Hey, I'm a Bryce Young truther.
I don't think that he's shown, even those big time plays, like for example, Caleb Williams last year had a bit of a disappointing rookie year, but every so often he would make an ESPN top 10 sports center play. I haven't seen that from Michael Penix Jr. And that lack of spark, maybe it's the coaching, maybe it's the sitting for a year, maybe I'm not sure what it is. But at the moment, I think there's real cause for concern for him and, by extension, the Falcons front office that drafted him.
Yeah, they're in the starting to worry tier because I think we are starting to worry. They kind of perfectly embody what this tier on the panic meter means. But moving then to the next tier up into serious trouble, these are clear problems which are hurting the team right now. And I think there is no better example than the New York Giants defense. And the only reason why I've not got them ranked any higher than this in the true panic stations part is, again, what I was saying with the Jets, because of those expectations going into the year. But why is Abdul Carter? Why the hell is Abdul Carter one of the most athletic, freaky, physically gifted pass rushers we've seen since, very fittingly, Micah Parsons, who had a brilliant preseason against starters in versus the Bills, for example? Why are you playing Abdul Carter as a QB spy and as a middle linebacker? He's played 1/3 of his snaps in the box. That means he is playing 1/3 of his snaps a yard or 2 yards off the line of scrimmage. I like the idea of moving him around the defensive line. Micah Parsons is at his best when he can pick his matchup, or the defensive coordinator picks their matchup, and you expose it. He had a great rep against the center. Creed Humphrey, a very good centre for the Chiefs, whipped him, gave him a little do-si-do, faked left, went right, and got round him with his agility. I like that. But that still wouldn't count as playing snaps in the box. That would count as playing it on the line of scrimmage. And it's just really questionable when you draft a player that highly to then not really use them in the way that we all thought and kind of know he should be used. At one point in this game, Tormund Fox had more snaps at edge than Abdul Carter did. It feels like Shane Bowen, the defensive coordinator, is trying to be too clever. He thinks he is Jesse Minter in Los Angeles. He thinks he is Mike McDonald in Seattle. Like, he thinks he's this new wave of defensive coordinator. You are not. Shane, mate, you're not that guy. You're not that guy, pal. Put your 4 best players on the field. Put Dexter Lawrence out there with Brian Burns, with Darius Alexander, with Abdul Carter, and let them pin their ears back and let them win you football games because they are that good.
What's so sad now is that Dexter Lawrence is now rumoured to be requesting a trade. He probably won't be part of the Giants in 2 years' time. One of, if not the best interior defensive lineman in football, because the Giants' defense just wastes talent. Look at players like Xavier McKinney balling out on the Packers, Defensive Player of the Year candidate. All they do is waste talent. And American football is a simple game. If you're able to get pressure with 4, your defense is cracked. You've literally cracked the code already. But you're right, he's trying to think outside the box. Like, what if I put our best player, ask him to do something different? You're not asking Messi to play centre-back. You ask players what they're good at, to play to their strength and do what they're good at. And it is infuriating watching Giants games. And you look across the defensive line, and as a Giants fan, I don't even know who half of them are. I'm expecting a superstar lineup, and I'm getting a B cast. And it absolutely infuriates me.
It is crazy when you have that talent available to just not use them. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, Dexter Lawrence is great. And I agree. I think Dexter Lawrence is the best interior defensive lineman now that Aaron Donald retired a few years ago. And Aaron Donald was that good that he still deserves to get mentioned as kind of recently retired Aaron Donald, even though that was like 3 years ago now. But he is that good. And if the Giants lose a player like that, that is unforgivable. And I would trade Shane Bowen 1,000,000 times before I even remotely thought about trading or getting rid of Dexter Lawrence, because he is that guy. He is that guy. And that's what we thought the Giants were going to be competitive, is because of their defense. And Daniel Jones is cooking it up in Indianapolis. Xavier McKinney is looking great. Obviously, previous Defensive Player of the Year potential candidate for the Packers. People leave. Saquon Barkley, one Offensive Player of the Year in Philadelphia. The list is actually kind of bonkers. But the fact that so many people will leave and just completely change their career trajectory by leaving New York, specifically the New York Giants, but kind of applies for both teams, dare I say, is absolutely wild.
It's absolutely wild. And I think Jackson Dart will start next week. I think that throw from Russell Wilson on 4th down is the single worst throw I've ever seen in an NFL game. I think they're going to try to save their jobs. They're going to scramble. And unfortunately, I think they're going to make things worse. Okay, for me, I've got another defense, and especially a defensive mind, if you want to call him that, in Matt Eberflus and the Dallas Cowboys. Eberflus, sorry. Matt Eberflus and the Dallas Cowboys defense. Oh my God, was this embarrassing for him. You're going up against your old quarterback. You're supposed to know this guy inside and out. You took him from USC, you cultivated him as a rookie, and he has his best ever career game against you. 296 yards, 4 touchdowns. His soft shell defense by rushing 4 doesn't work. Guess what? When you trade your best pass rusher, you're not able to rush 4 and get pressure. He's a dinosaur, effectively. It shows how quickly the NFL evolves. But that classic just rushing 4, playing defensive zone doesn't work anymore in the NFL. And his career, not as a head coach, but as a major offensive coordinator, I think is over. When you have Russell Wilson looking like he's back in 2013 against the teams, we've got Trayvon Diggs, that one-on-one rep, him versus Rome Odunze, is one of the worst cornerback reps I've seen in years. He puts his hand up and just falls over. The flea flicker, which was designed specifically to get Eberflus, worked an absolute charm. He's predictable, and that Dallas Cowboys team, that Dallas Cowboys defense looks absolutely shocking.
It's so annoying to see a coach that we know is bad historically just keep being given new opportunities. Like, it all becomes clear when you're like, okay, well, why are the Cowboys so bad? Obviously, yeah, Joe Jones made a terrible decision and traded away literally their star player. But why is the defense just that bad? And then you go and research it. This was me after week 1. And, oh, yeah, when they lost to the Eagles because they let Jalen Hurts pick up an easy 3 yards with his legs when they were on 3rd and 3. And they just played soft zone defense again there with, yes, everyone's got their eyes on Jalen Hurts. Brilliant. But it doesn't really matter when you've only got to pick up 3 yards. And you check who the defensive coordinator is. And lo and behold, it's Matt Eberflus. It is the easiest job in the world, once you've been a head coach, just kind of fall upwards and just obviously not going to be a head coach again, but just to be automatically given another opportunity. He was one of the worst head coaches I've ever seen. And yeah, look, of course, being a head coach is different to being a coordinator. Someone like a Josh McDaniels, for example, who had tried his hand at being the Raiders head coach, is now back being the offensive coordinator in New England. That's obviously fine. Vic Fangio, head coach, done it, not going to be hired again. But when they were never good, right? I don't know what Matt Eberflus was ever good at. When he is, again, being made the defensive coordinator of... It's not like a rebuilding team. It's not like it's the Saints and they had to just get anyone that would take the job. It's the Dallas Cowboys. I cannot believe it. They are allowing 30-plus points per game on average. They are 28th ranked in scoring defense. They are second last in defensive EPA per play. This defense is absolutely diabolical, and it is because of bad coaching, which is what Matt Eberflus is. Before we go to panic stations, there's some breaking news on the pod, which I think deserves to be in maybe not panic stations, but maybe in the serious trouble part, and that is that Nick Bosa is out for the season after tearing his ACL on Sunday against the Arizona Cardinals. Obviously, the San Francisco 49ers in that game did not look particularly strong. Nick Bosa is a fantastic defensive player, and they got rid of loads of their defensive talent this offseason in free agency. Dre Greenlaw, Tanner Hufanga. It's when you're relying, I think, off the top of my head, on Etor Gross Matos to be now your new edge one. Might not have got that right. We'll get Paddy to check that later. You are not in a good spot. So it'll be interesting to see how the 49ers can kind of bounce back from a massive defensive loss, because the team has really not looked as good as... And I picked them to go to the Super Bowl, by the way. So this is kind of panic stations for me right now.
So how old is Nick Bosa? I'm just off the... because I'm worried for an edge rusher at his stage of a career having that serious an injury could be pretty bad news.
He's 27. He's all right.
Oh, okay, that's fine. But yeah, with Brock Purdy out with, is it turf toe? I think he's got.
Yeah, he's out with some sort of Brock Purdy's out. Obviously, Mac Jones is doing all right.
Yeah, we've got Mac Jones. Yeah, injury problems again for the Niners.
Yeah, no Ayuk still, no Kittle.
Yeah. They're still 3-0. Listen, that buys them at least 3 games.
Yes,
even
true.
if they lose 3 games, it buys a bit of time. But not enough time for an ACL. Not enough time for an ACL recovery, unfortunately.
No, that's rough for the Bosas, man. Both of them are such good players, and unfortunately, they have both kind of had marred careers with injuries. But moving on then to our final panic threshold. We are now at the top. We are panicking. It is hot in here. It is panic stations. What's your panic station, Nick?
Houston, we have a problem. CJ
Yeah,
Stroud.
nice. Clean.
CJ Stroud and the Houston offense looks terrible. And I think this is cause for concern for full-blown panic.
Yeah.
CJ Stroud does not look anything like his rookie season self. Not even remotely similar. He is a shell of the player. Through 3 games, the Houston Texans are the first team ever to concede 55 points or less and be 0-3. They have the 32nd ranked offense, 14 points a game, 32nd on third down with, I believe, 20%, and they are 32nd on red zone percentage with, wait for it, 0% in the red zone. They are one of the worst offenses I've ever seen. And I think you're right to blame the offensive line, maybe Bobby Slowick, all these different things. But I think fundamentally they drafted 2 flash receivers in this draft. And I know they drafted Ronte Arcery, but I do think they addressed the offensive line enough. CJ Stroud is not a mobile quarterback. He never has been and he never will be. But I think his lack of mobility is really being exposed behind an absolutely horrific offensive line. And the Texans, their playoff hopes are done. You're right, there's a 1%, since 2018, 1 in 100 teams have made the playoffs after starting 0-3.
You know who that one is?
The Texans. Doesn't
Hey,
matter.
gang.
They are not going anywhere, and their season's over before it really began due to, I believe, poor mismanagement, which also might have derailed a promising young career.
As a Texans fan, it's so bad. It's never been more over, really. Obviously, well, I say that. We had the Davis Mills, Mr. Neck himself kind of taking us. And then we lost the first overall pick because of the Colts interception. It was a nightmare. But since it has restarted with CJ Stroud at the helm, it has now never been more over. Only going 0-3 to start the season is a big problem. And they're the only team in the last 20 years to start 0-3 despite allowing fewer than 50 points. So the defense is doing their side of the bargain. It is completely on the offense. The offensive line is a total mess. It is so horrible to watch because anyone with eyes knew that it would be. I was saying all offseason, I ranked the offensive line as the 32nd worst, the worst offensive line in the league, the 32nd in the league, because 4/5 of our offensive line was bad last year, and our way to remedy that was to trade away the 1/5 that was good in Laramie Tunsil because of some locker room concerns, which sure might have been a problem, but you know what's a bigger problem for the locker room? Not winning games, so that's not a very clever idea. And then our offensive weapons are not clicking. We spent 2 high draft picks on Higgins. What's his first name? I've forgotten his first name.
Well, the 2 Iowa State receivers.
Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll. That's it. I'm getting them confused with Xavier Hutchinson. We spent 2 high picks on them, not on an offensive lineman. In fact, we could have drafted Josh Connolly Jr. We could have drafted Josh Simmons, who plays now for the Chiefs and for the Commanders, flip them around respectively. And they're playing very well. Instead, we've got Aaron Arcery, who was never going to be ready. He was always a project, could not be an answer. He's been thrust out there. He looks terrible. The whole of the offensive line looks terrible. And we spent our 2 picks on Xavier Higgins, on Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll, for them to receive through the first few weeks 29 and 25 receiving snaps respectively. That went behind Justin Watson, a backup tight end, and Xavier Hutchinson, who was a late-round draft pick from a few years ago who played for Iowa State. Stroud is seeing ghosts behind the offensive line as a result. He's making poor decisions with the football. He's got really bad pocket presence. It is completely unraveling in Houston. And it is because, in my mind, not because of CJ Stroud's talent, I do think there's some merit to the argument that he's not looked like he did in his rookie season for the last 2 years, right? Looking back last year and now again this year. And that is true. But I do trust that talent. Like, to do that as a rookie isn't just luck. Like someone that's done that previously, Baker Mayfield, Justin Herbert, they've had rough years and they are playing at the top of their games right now. I trust CJ Stroud still. But he is a quarterback, as you said, that needs a good offensive line. And we have literally the worst offensive line in the league right now. And unsurprisingly, that's giving us some of the worst results in the league.
So, Dom, how do you think the Texans can turn it around? Because I think this draft, especially when they traded back with the Giants, I believe, when we traded up for Jackson Dart, for me, that just didn't make any sense unless you were going to draft 3 or 4 offensive linemen to draft 2 new receivers. It doesn't make any sense to me, and I think you've neglected it to the point where, as again, the Giants never had a good offensive line, at least in the last couple of years, but they've always had 1 or 2 okay players string it together. you have the 32nd ranked offensive line, and I think you've got the 32nd ranked left tackle, right guard, center. All 5 of them could be easily the worst in their position. And the complete neglect from the front office is just baffling for me.
It is wild. It is absolutely wild. And I was doing the draft live at TalkSport, and I was like, we're gonna draft Josh Connolly Jr. He's on the board. Josh Simmons has fallen. There were offensive linemen there. I was worried actually that neither of those two guys would even be on the board by our pick because of how valuable offensive linemen are. And people were very high on Josh Simmons. Josh Connolly was the one that I thought would be there. We willingly traded out when, to be fair, I think Josh Connolly might have gone the pick before, which is why we did trade out. But to let both of those players go, essentially, not either be aggressive and trade up or not draft Josh Simmons, who definitely was there because the Chiefs drafted him with their penultimate pick, was absolutely egregious team building. And I think Nick Caserio is a good GM. Obviously, the Stroud and the Will Anderson pick, and has kind of set this team up very well for the future. And I like what they've done with the defense; has done really well as well. The cornerback Stingley has looked really good. I love Jalen Petrie. I think the drafting's generally been really good. The offensive line, though, is a glaring hole, and I don't think it's something that can be fixed this year. I think we are absolutely cooked, and as I said, it is absolutely over. But moving then on to the final panic station here, and I'm just as panicked as I am about this person and therefore team as I am the Texans, and that is Brian Callahan, the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. He is an awful head coach, genuinely awful head coach. He is now 3-17. He has the worst record ever for a head coach through 20 games. I think what was the biggest warning sign for me about Brian Callahan, and I said this in the offseason and before then, I'm surprised no one else was saying it. I'm sure other people were. But he made Will Levis worse. And everyone was kind of too busy mocking Will Levis, making him to a meme with his ridiculous interceptions to notice and stop and ask, hang on, why is a quarterback who actually showed quite a bit of promise as a second-round pick in his rookie year, why does he now look so much worse? And I think now it's clear that is because Brian Callahan is just that bad of a head coach. His game management and decision-making is truly awful. There are 40 seconds left on the clock. He takes a delay of game rather than calling one of his timeouts to send them back multiple yards, and then lo and behold, their kicker misses the kick. He's getting booed off the field at halftime. They're cheering the offensive coordinator as he goes past, and as Brian Callahan goes past, they're booing him relentlessly. And you know what? Good on them, because Titans fans clearly know ball. He is terrible. I think Mike McCoy, the offensive coordinator, will be the interim head coach within a month, because because Cam Ward has shown real promise. He looks really good, actually, I think, Cam Ward. A lot better than I thought he would do. And Brian Callahan is going to wreck him.
But he was a scrub when he was hired. It was bizarre. And then why they kept him on this year again still makes no sense. I think hopefully NFL teams know now that if you get the number 1 overall pick, sack the front office and bring in new staff to develop a player.
So true.
Instead of just wasting a year. Happens with Caleb Williams, who obviously just had a great game, don't want to overreact, but I think Ben Johnson can really bring out the best in him. Happens, I can think of multiple examples. I think it's going to happen with Jackson Dart this year. If you get the number 1 overall pick, fire your head coach and get a new staff and build him from the ground up. This weird transition year does a lot more damage than it does good. But Dom, why are you such a big fan of the offensive coordinator? Do you not think he has a part to play in the issue with the Titans as well then?
No, because I think the offense actually, for the most part, it's quite good. It's the decision making and kind of the not character building, the culture building aspect of it that's really bad. And it's the fact that they look like a messy team. I think the offense actually has some good plays there. I think they're playing well. Like I said, Cam Ward is playing well. So I trust the offensive coordinator much more than I trust Brian Callahan. I'm not saying he should be the future head coach. I'm just saying that he will almost definitely be the interim head coach. But you know who is the special teams coordinator? The only special teams coordinator whose name I ever have actually known.
Is it Joe Judge?
No, it's not Joe Judge. I forgot that guy was a special teams coordinator.
God,
not Joe Judge. I know him because of the All or Nothing St. Louis Rams.
It's not Jeff Fisher. No, surely not.
Not Jeff Fisher.
I don't know who is
that
it.
Jeff? It's the guy that's the Bones, like something Hassel or Fassel.
I think that's a bit too niche for me.
John Fossel. Anyway, he crops up every single place he goes to and has been the interim head coach before because he's a really safe pair of hands. So it could be him. But those are the things people, teams sides of the ball that we are panicking about here at Corbs NFL. We want to know, what are you panicking about? Let us know in the comments down below. Do you agree or disagree with how panicked me and Nu are about these people or players or coaches that we have mentioned? Let us know that in the comments. Make sure you leave a like to show you've liked the video. Send it out to other NFL fans. And as always, make sure you subscribe to not miss a single video. But I've been your host, Dom Corbs. That's my co-host, Nick Corbs. We'll see you on the next video.
See ya.